Today I'm going to teach you how to make CBD comfort cream, which is also basic body butter recipe with the addition of a transdermal agent and pure CBD isolate, plus an optional fragrance if you choose to have one. And then the recipe that we're going to be using should make two 16-ounce containers, which you can see is pretty good size. So what you're going to need is you're going to need a stand mixer, and you're going to need the whisk attachment. In fact, we'll go ahead and put that on wrong way right now. Lock that down. You want to make sure that everything's clean and sanitary. You want to make sure that you're using gloves. I prefer to use thicker gloves because I'm a bit of a klutz, and I don't want to get the DMSO in its pure form, which this is 99.99% pure. In that concentration, it can absolutely be harmful to you. In the concentrations we use in the formula, however, it's not. Latex gloves will work as well. Regardless of whether you're wearing gloves or not, make sure that if you do get any DMSO in the pure form on your hands or any other part of your body, that you immediately wash it off, change gloves, and wait a little while just to make sure that you're okay, because this can be dangerous. It's probably the only thing up here that's actually potentially dangerous in the pure form. Pretty much everything else, you can just leave it on your hand in the pure form. And we're using quite a bit of each one. So our ingredients, we're going to start out with 5 1/4 ounces of shea butter, 5 1/4 ounces of mango butter, 4 1/2 ounces of olive oil, 1/2 ounce of jojoba oil, 25 milliliters of DMSO, 2.5 grams of pure CBD isolate. You can also use full spectrum hash or concentrate. The big key with all that is going to be determining what your final concentration in the formulation is going to be based on what the percentage in the original product you have is. So if you've got lab tested hash, you can rest assured that when they test it out, it's probably not going to run CBD wise more than maybe 50%. There's a way that I'm not going to show you today, but it's called winterization, where you can separate out the plant waxes so that you've just got the CBD and terpenes and other cannabinoids isolated away from the plant waxes, which would increase that concentration of CBD in the total. But let's say you do have 50% CBD in some CBD hash you've got. To run the calculations on that, they're pretty simple. So if I need 2.5 grams of pure CBD, then I would need 5 grams of CBD hash at 50% purity of CBD in that hash. So I'm going to go ahead and pull these off. For doing these, all I do is either weigh them out or pull them out with our graduated cylinder here to measure those out so that you get the right concentrations, which are really important to the final formula. I just use a standard postal scale, same one we use to ship stuff as the one we use to weigh stuff. And then I went ahead and pre-mixed some about a week ago. So this is the base. It still needs to be whipped, and it also needs to have the fragrance added to it. And we're going to do just a touch of sandalwood in vanilla bean oil for the rest of it. So we're probably going to end up doing, let's see here, 2.5 milliliters. So we'll probably do 2 milliliters of the vanilla bean oil and 0.5 milliliters of the sandalwood, because we want the sandalwood to give it just a little bit of an earthy, woody undertone to really enrich the vanilla bean. And then The one last thing that you're going to want, although you can scoop it out of the mixer when it's done with a spoon or any other implement that's clean and medical grade, sanitary, all that, are these piping bags. I prefer to use these because it makes it a lot quicker and easier, and I can wash these and make sure that they're sanitary after each use. And then I put a little V is for vanilla. That tells me that this one's used the vanilla fragrance, and so I won't use it with any other one. It's just a precautionary thing, just in case I don't get every little bit of the fragrance out. That way I'm both not mixing fragrances, and if somebody, God forbid, gets fragrance free and got one out of a improperly marked bag, they might have issues, because a lot of the people that get fragrance free have allergies and other stuff where the fragrances that go into the other ones could potentially cause health issues with them. So we keep separate ones. We have 5 of these we use right now for 5 different scents. So we're going to go ahead and get started here. I'm going to put these on, mostly just because it's going to keep the mess off my hands, and it'll keep me from having to run out and grab latex gloves. So we've got it off. We're going to unlock it. We're going to scoop this in, and it is cold. And while this is, or just before I start this running, I'll explain the actual process, even though we're not going to be showing the initial mixing of the base, to kind of explain some of the principles at play to get it to this point. And I'd like to credit my friend Mercedes Hafer with actually going over some of the more mechanical and industrial parts of dealing with mixing of oils and creams and waxes and whatnot, even though we don't have any waxes in here. But she helped me kind of perfect the process so that you get a much better, more stable result. And that's what I'm going to be going over with you today. So that looks like it's pretty good. Just scrape off a little bit there. And we'll end up using this to scrape down the sides here in a little bit. So I'm going to go ahead and leave that up for a second. Let's get that little bit off there. And we're going to go ahead and measure out our fragrance oils. So we're going to shake them real good. And then for this one, I just use the disposable pipettes. That way we always know that we're getting new clean ones. And then very carefully suck about half up. Okay, that's one. Close enough. Got a little stuff on the side, that's alright. It'll end up going in the trash. Shaking's probably not necessary, but I like to do it anyways. Just reassures me just in case if something's settled. As much as we can. And of this one, we're going to do 2. So I'm just looking at the line as I measure it. It's not quite 2, so that we can put that back in. Give it another shot. I try to get it all in one foul swoop. Extras fine, because I can always go right there. Always push it back out if I got a little too much. Okay, pop that down and lock it in place. That goes in the trash. So to get to the base, the first thing we do is we take the shea butter and the mango butter, unmelted, so they're still solidified. We put them in the mixer. and we very slowly beat it at about the 1 or 2 speed, just kind of wherever it feels right, where it's starting to break it down, but it's not kicking it out of the bowl or bucking it out. And you want to get it to a nice smooth consistency. A little chunky is fine too, but mostly smooth. Then we pour in the DMSO, and the reason we do it then is we want it to fully intermix with the cream or with the butters. And the butters, by whipping it in, you end up getting a more consistent texture, and it prevents the DMSO from sweating out of the oils. So that's the first part we do. The second part is I usually measure out the jojoba oil, and then I put the CBD isolate or CBD hash, depending on which one, into the jojoba oil. I warm that up just a little bit, and I actually use the lesser quantity of the two oils on purpose because I'm heating it up, and I want to heat it up as little as possible to be able to get all the CBD dissolved, and at the same time I want the smallest volume of oil to actually be warmed up, so that when I go to add it in with all the cooler recipe items, that it's not going to bring the total temperature up too high. If you add the olive oil and the jojoba oil and then warm it up, you're playing with fire. You really want to keep the mix cool as possible. You want to do a cold mix on this. So you go ahead and pour the 4.5 ounces of olive oil in with all of your butters after you've thoroughly mixed in the DMSO for a couple minutes. And then you add in your jojoba oil with the CBD dissolved into that. And if you can, you want to let it cool off a little bit. What I usually do is when I get done getting it dissolved well, I'll actually toss the container that's got that into the freezer for a couple minutes just to help chill it back down, so I'm not messing with the average temperature of the mix I'm doing. You go ahead and mix that up, whip it up for about 5 to 10 minutes until the total amount that you put in has doubled in volume. And then at any point while you're mixing it, after you've gotten everything else into one bowl, you can go ahead and add your fragrance or just leave it fragrance free. So I'm going to go ahead and kick this on for just a minute to let you guys watch kind of how it mixes. And I've already got it at a smooth consistency as far as all the components because I'm using the base I created earlier. I'm basically just getting the fragrance in. So I'm actually going to, and trying to beat some air into it so I get a nice whip to it. Because it makes it a lot easier to use, a lot more luxurious on the skin. It's just a better product when you whip it. You can use it as more of a salve, but the whipped body butter version is just, it's so much better. It almost seems like a waste to not spend 5 to 10 minutes to turn it into that better product. You'll actually be able to see that it's already starting to look a lot like cake frosting, which is a big part of the reason I went to my friend Mercedes, is she's a professional baker. So I'm going to go ahead and kick that off for a second. And every once in a while, every minute or so, maybe every 2 minutes, you want to go in and go ahead and scrape the sides because you want to get all of it. On these KitchenAids especially, I think most of them are like this these days, always have been. You got to scrape the sides or you get stuff sticking to it. So you can even see the color difference. You'll have whipped versus unwhipped. And so for better consistency, you definitely want to scrape the sides. Get it all mixed up. I'll even actually turn it a little bit after I scrape it so that I'm putting the unwhipped parts, which you can tell by the color, more near the center top, and that way I know they'll get mixed in on this next run. And then I usually do it maybe 3 to 4 times total in about a 10-minute period, so that's probably about every 2 minutes. And then I usually do one last one, so that'll give you your fifth. And we're back. That looks good. We'll wash this right up. You want to get that scrubbed up right away. Do not let kids lick this. It is not frosting. You want to make sure you do dishes right after you get done doing this as well, because any small person, adult, man, woman, yeah, pretty much everybody, probably your dog too, and cat, are going to want to lick this if you leave it any part of this in the sink. So make absolutely sure, because we are dealing with a medicine, that you're thoroughly cleaning it with soap and water and then leaving it in the sink. It's safe that way, or throw in the dishwasher, whatever. But absolutely under no circumstances should you just leave this uncleaned afterwards. So we're going to take a break for a second. I'm actually going to clean this, and we'll be right back. Okay, now we only have one thing left. That's to get it into the piping bag, pipe it into the containers, and then we're going to tap a little bit of the air out, because no matter how you do it, you end up getting some air bubbles. And you really want to get as much as you can into a container. I know we do it that way because, frankly, I want to know that when you're purchasing stuff from us, that you're getting a full container, that it is all the way up to the top. We're not going to skimp. We want to get as many of the big air bubbles out as we can, because my worst nightmare is having somebody get a jar and there's a big air bubble in it. Especially when we're dealing with something that somebody's going to rely on for pain relief. I've had that happen to me before in the past, where I got halfway down in the product and there was a giant air bubble. I'd gotten 3/4 of what I paid for. And if that does happen, please contact us. We'll send you another container. It is not a problem at all. I'd rather send you the container just to know that you've got what you paid for and that you've got the medicine you need. That matters more to me than anything else does. It's what drove me to make this stuff. It's what's driven me to sell the stuff at an affordable price. It's what has me doing all the testing and all the research I did to get it to where it is now, so I know that it's safe for me to use, and I do use it. I know it's safe for my family to use. Most of them use it. In fact, I'm always confident when I give it to anybody that it's both going to help their pain issues and that it's not going to harm them. I wouldn't put anything out that was going to. Neither should anybody else, not that it stops some unscrupulous individuals, but we're striving for integrity and transparency here, so just kind of fold it back up like that, and it gives me a nice work surface area where I can start to get my big clumsy hands in there to fold that up a little bit. like that. And it's a little messy sometimes, but I go ahead and start right at the top, very, very gently. Squeeze it down about like that. I can still tell by the coloration that I've got an air bubble there. That's fine. And then very slowly down till it's just to the tip. And then it's just like ice in a cake, except you don't need any skill. You just kind of squirt it in there and swirl it around. These are big containers. Big tip too, but you want to try to get as much in there as you can. Just like that. Okay. Give it a little extra top. I'm actually going to set that right in there. Drag that over for a second so I can show you this part here, which is just tap it out, and that gets any of the big air bubbles just kind of burst out the side. And I can usually get a little more in there, and I do. You can tell you're going to want to do it in an area where it's pretty easy to clean up afterwards. You do get some little jumpers there. Accidents happen, right? Happy little accidents. Okay. Give that a little top. Not too much this time. I'll kind of get it right up to the surface there. Sometimes I can get those just right. Sometimes I can't. This is one of those cases, but it's alright. Make it a little worse. You got just a little bit sticking up. That's okay too. We're going to go ahead and put the cap on. And then I actually put these in the fridge to set. And usually within an hour, these have the consistency that you expect, which is a nice, it's almost like whipped butter when you go to use it, which is really what you want, because you can get just the right amount. You get just a little bit, which is really all you need. You don't end up with a big, huge, even if you take a big glob of it, you're not actually getting so much that you're not going to be able to use it. I always felt that was one of the problems with bombs and stuff like that, is you go to scrape out some and you get way too much. And it was so dense and solid that you'd end up wasting half of it. So we were trying to go for a little better results with it. So I think that's what led us to the body butter. Is in our testing with friends and family and patients, we found that frankly they just preferred this consistency, this formula. So that's what we went with. The key active ingredients, those we could put in almost anything as long as it makes sense to have them in it. So I guarantee you that we're never going to have a CBD comfort cream shampoo. It's never going to happen. But there are some other products we're working on, massage oils and the such, where it makes more sense. And we're also going to be working on some all-natural organic products that don't have the transdermal part in it, because some people don't want the transdermal. And then we're also working on some that have full spectrum CBD, which would be CBD hash from CBD flowers. We get just a little more. We're not quite all the way full on that one. I think I might have undermeasured just a touch. But we're pretty close. Fortunately, this jar is going to my daughter-in-law, Brianna, for her health issues. And she's one of the first people that, seeing the kind of pain that she was in, motivated me to sit down and actually do the research. Like, I knew I wanted to create something like this prior to that, but she was, watching her be in pain was truly the catalyst. I was to that point where I couldn't stand watching one more person that I cared about be in that kind of excruciating pain and having doctors tell them, well, here's some more opioids. Well, my partner Jen and I have studied the opioid crisis quite a bit, and we don't need any more addicts. We don't need any more deaths. We don't need any of that. Not when we have something that's natural, non-addictive, non-harmful, that can eradicate your pain, almost regardless what the cause of it is, and not have you get addicted to it. You might get addicted to feeling good and being pain-free and not having so much inflammation, because this is going to do all of those things for you. But it's not going to kill you, and it's not going to make you addicted to something that you don't want. I start and stop using this whenever I have pains or joint issues, anything nerve related, without an issue. So I've tested it, my family's tested it, friends have tested it. I have yet to have a person that used it that didn't like it. It's not the solution for everything. It's definitely not the miracle cure for cancer. Let me repeat that, is not the miracle cure for cancer. But if you're looking for something that's quick and easy and versatile, that you can throw in your purse or throw in your pocket, go out, do your activities, whatever you need to do, young or old, and it'll fix you right up. It'll, at the very least, it will reduce the amount of pain you're feeling to make it manageable, and in most cases, it just completely mutes it. As all things, different people have different body types and genetic profiles, so we always say that results are going to vary. Thank you for sitting through this with me.